we have with us Mr. Devarajan Nambakam. He's the senior MD and the co-head of investment banking, Goldman Sachs. He's from the PGP 2006 batch, and he received the Young Alumni Achievers Award in the corporate leadership category. Something about his profile. He, with an impressive tenure of 18 years in the firm, he's a senior member of the investment banking industry in India and constitutes one of the senior managing directors who are in their early 40s with such a long tenure in the industry. Congratulations, Dave, on receiving the award.
Thank you. Thank you so
And
much.
what does this award mean to you?
I think, if I think about, you said I've been doing this for 18 years. If I go back 18 years and think about, would I be in the same job, in the same organization? I honestly never thought about it. I think along the way, at each point in the job and in life, I just kept reacting to things that came. And I did the best I could. And the reason I say it that way is at each point when I did those things, it wasn't with the knowledge that it's going to be a success or a failure. So, what this award, in a way, the way I say it is, it means to me that it's a validation by IIMA of me having done something right in the last 18 years. And so to that extent, it's a satisfaction that some of the choices, some of the decisions I have made along the way were the right ones. Some things I have been doing correct. But equally, I think that's only one part of it. If I think about my journey, I would like to think, I hope I'm only in the middle of it. I have a lot left to do. I want to do a lot more. And so this award also for me is a big responsibility. I want to make sure I always have tried to be, and I'm now all the more conscious that I have to be a good ambassador for IIMA. And I want to carry this responsibility and represent our alumni community and our institution well going forward in my career as well. So in short, this award for me is both a validation which gives a sense of satisfaction, but equally a sense of responsibility for what I need to carry forward with me in the future as well.
And what got you attracted to investment banking? Why did you choose this field?
You would have heard many IIM alumni say this. When you join the institute and you see the peers around you, you realize they're exceptionally smart. And there are many, many, many of them. And so it made me at least make an honest assessment of my own skill set. I realized that there's too much talent. So one needs to be a little bit more deliberate and honestly assess what the strengths are and areas of improvement are. And I think that set the tone for me to try and figure out what I like to do, what I could be good at. Given my background in finance, certain personality traits I had, which was more people-oriented work, service-oriented work, I felt that investment banking as an industry was well suited. It was a choice I made, and then I doubled down and I worked hard to try and make sure I get it. Fortunately for me, that worked out when I sat for the internship interviews. I must also say the 10 weeks of internship that I did in investment banking, I also used the time to make sure that as much as it was important for my organization to understand me, to see if I was good enough to become a regular full-time employee after I finished my IIMA, I was also making an assessment during those 10 weeks, a self-assessment of whether the work I was doing on a daily basis actually suited me or not, whether I was good at it or not, and whether I liked it or not. So I think fortunately through those 10 weeks, it worked out both ways. I felt comfortable that this was an industry and a business segment that I wanted to spend time in and learn more and try and pursue a career in it. So that's how I made my choice and my decision to pursue a career in investment banking. Having said that, a lot of what I do today, I have learned on the job. So to be fair, what choices I made on campus was based on a certain amount of information, but a lot of what I learned about investment banking was on the job and I've had to grow with it. So net, the answer is, I think based on the information I had at that time and the skill set I thought I made this choice. But then it's been a conscious choice over the last 2 decades as well to make sure that on a continuing basis, I feel it's still the right choice for me and I continue doing it that way.
And what can you tell us about some significant challenges that you faced in your career and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. It's um, I work in a very people oriented business. It's advisory mostly. And hence, the job itself involves working with other people who are your colleagues to be of service to other people, which are your clients. The reason I stress on the people aspect of it is, by definition, the best parts and the challenging parts of this job involve people. If you ask me what has been the biggest challenge, it's not a quantifiable specific incident or event, but one thing that over the years I have felt as something that keeps coming up, and I need to stay true to it, is in a people oriented business, you're going to be working with people and going to be getting inputs on uh, how you should be, what you should do, how you should, how you should look, how you should, and when I say how you should look in terms of the actions you do, and these are all well intentioned. But the reality of it is, it's very easy to get lost in a people driven industry on what your true fabric is. So for me, the challenge, if you want to call it that, is I want to hold on to my fabric as an individual. I want to embrace my strengths, my areas of improvement, my vulnerabilities, my weaknesses, all in equal measure, because that's what makes a true, full individual. And so I feel like over time, through those pulls and pushes, I have managed to do that to a reasonable extent. But again, it's not a one-time challenge. It's going to keep happening. And by the way, what I'm saying is probably not true just for investment banking. It's true for almost any people-oriented job. But I think it's going to be an ongoing challenge. But it's something that I feel, if I have to take a broad view of the last 18 years, this is one theme that has been recurring. And I make a conscious choice to hold on to what I think is a true fabric of what I am. And with that, if I'm able to succeed, I want to do it. So that's probably what I would highlight as something I needed to overcome or understand and live with to be able to do this job successfully.
Okay. And about the investment banking landscape, what are your observations over the last 18 years?
Um, I did my first 3.5 years of investment banking in London in Goldman, and I've been here in India now for over a decade and a half. So if I look at my decade and a half in India, two, three things have changed. Sorry, one is I think the investment banking industry has matured a lot. And what do I mean by that? Today, the role that investment bankers play in different aspects of commerce, whether it's mergers and acquisitions, whether it's capital raise, private capital raise, or public capital raise, whether it's cross-border, joint ventures and M&A, or whether it's domestic consolidation. These are all themes that have emerged in the Indian economy in the last decade and a half. And over time, both clients as well as investment bankers have understood what each other's role is. And so the clients understand when they need what kind of advice or service, and so who they can work with. Similarly, investment bankers have understood what their value proposition is in these instances. So I think that maturity has increased quite a bit in the last decade and a half, and I think it's only going to continue. Second thing I would say, and this is less to do with investment banking, but more to do with how wonderfully well India's positioned on the global economic platform. I think India today, more than ever before, is seen by far as the best emerging hotspot of economic growth, and hence, owing to multiple factors, including political stability, including fundamental economic growth, and hence there is a significant focus of global capital on India. So global companies want to invest and grow in India. Global funds, private equity funds, public equity funds, debt funds want to invest in India. And so by definition, India is in a very good place of attracting a lot of good attention for the economic reasons and hence capital. And investment bankers play a role in making sure that they are able to channel that capital, effectively making demand and supply meet between demand in India and global capital availability. So that's the other theme which has emerged quite a bit over the last few years. And the last thing, more forward looking, I would say the next decade, I personally believe, is India's for the taking, right, on the global platform. And so I only see this maturing even more. I think we are probably going to figure out new things that investment bankers can be helpful with or play a role in India's economic development. So those things will continue to evolve. So the pace of evolution of new products and services will also pick up going forward within the investment banking industry, is my belief.
Okay. And you have been part of many ESG, committees and forums. Can you share something about some innovative products and sustainable finance? And what does it actually mean?
Yeah, yeah. It's a very topical thing today for not just India, but I would say globally. ESG at some point in the past used to follow commerce. Commerce and profits was
Mhm.
the primary objective, and ESG came as a afterthought or as a secondary metric to focus on. Today, I think that has changed. Today, the interplay between commerce and ESG has to be and is, I think, in such a way that there is no sustainable economics and profit without taking care of ESG. There is
Mhm.
no ESG if you're not commercially successful. So the two need to coexist and the two need to be a part of the day to day DNA of every organization and corporation. So the reason I highlighted that way is ESG today is about making sure that it's sustainable for the economy, it's sustainable for the people, it's sustainable for the businesses. And so you put this all together. A very good example I can think of is renewable power, which in my mind is one of the sectors in India which is a good um, poster child for how ESG and economics work together. India traditionally was a, and that's one of the forums I sat in, India Energy Development. India traditionally has been a very fossil fuel focused,
Yeah.
coal was and still is a large part of power generation.
Yeah.
But over the last decade, the phenomenal growth in renewable generation capacity is something that India can feel very proud of. And that has been possible because the way that sector has been opened up to private capital, a
Mhm.
lot of Indian as well as global capital has come into the renewable space as a profitable investment. Renewable power today is as cheap, if not cheaper, than thermal power. So consumers are taken care of, investors are able to invest money, companies are able to make profit, and overall, the objective of making sure that we rely less on coal and more on renewable energy, which is more important for our environment and our economy, is also being addressed. That is a good example of how an ESG product or sector
Mhm.
gets the right kind of stakeholders buying into it can be a win-win for everyone. So, in a nutshell, for me, ESG, that's the way to go about implementing ESG in business, in economy today. And so, if you asked about specific products, I talked about a sector, specific products. One example again that comes to mind, which has been seen a lot in renewable industries, you have ESG bonds. You do a bond which is linked purely to use of proceeds being linked to the ESG space. Similarly, my expectation is there will be more number of financial products. There is a lot of talk, and I think some success also seen in overall sustainable bonds, which is not just about ESG. Sustainability is much more than just ESG, and so these are concepts and products which are beginning to gain prominence, and I think they will continue to do so. And I'm a big supporter of it. That's also a good example of where I think hopefully investment bankers, including myself, can play a role in making sure that we are able to do it in a successful way which benefits all stakeholders involved.
And you have won the Leadership and Culture Award at Goldman Sachs twice. Can you share some of your insights about the importance of culture
Yeah.
in an
One of
organization?
the questions I get asked quite often is how have I been in the same job for so long or in the same industry for so long? And one of my answers has always been, apart from seeing career success, which of course is important to all of us,
Mm,
if you have to work hard, you want to do it in an environment where you feel comfortable, that the culture of the place is suited to the type of person you want to be and you want to work for that place.
mm,
I'm giving the example, my own example in my organization, but the reality of it is culture in any organization, it's very similar to what we just spoke about on ESG. Culture cannot be an afterthought.
mm,
Culture cannot be a good to have. Culture has to be a part of the DNA and day to day DNA of every organization. Because the reality of it is, one can't coexist without the other. Any organization which is culturally weak but good on commerce, by definition is going to be short lived, because eventually people and the culture will play a role in determining whether the longevity of that success is there or not. So culture to me means a couple of things. One, like I said, I work in a people driven industry. By definition, I cannot succeed alone.
mm,
If I have to succeed, people have to succeed with me. What does it mean? It could be my colleagues, it could be the team that I am leading, it could be my clients. If they are not succeeding and I am in their life, by definition, I'm not going to succeed, because I'm going to be of very less use to them. So that's one example of culture being something where we think of our actions and our, for lack of a better word, our use case for other people has to be real. It can't be that we take from the world, but we don't do enough for other people. It's a give and take. That's how you establish relationships. All of what I said ultimately leads to that one single point, which is if you build good relationships through your career, through your professional journey, and with your clients, that's all it takes to both succeed as well as be strong on culture. So my limited point
mm,
being that for me, culture has probably been not one of the things apart from career. It has been very much part of my day-to-day job, and hence, I think of Goldman recognizing that as a, again, a validation for how I think about it. But that's not something that it should not be limited to one or two or three things. Or it's not about the award. It's about making sure that everyone thinks
mm.
of culture as important as any other metric of success, if you will, or measure of success, if you will, in one's career.
And as a leader, you've been able to kind of drive this point of culture in your team, in your organization.
Absolutely. You mentioned the word leader.
Mm,
Far too, and I actually mentioned this in my acceptance speech when I was on campus as well. Far too often, people think becoming leaders means you tell others what to do.
mm,
By definition, that ends up resulting in them not focusing enough on what they themselves do.
mm,
I'm a big believer that a leader has to bring out the best in his or her people,
mm,
but you can do that only if you show them yours. So I think leading by example, and hence, if I want to lead a team which I would like to think has good culture, I have to practice it first. I have to demonstrate why I'm doing it and why that's beneficial for our entire team and our organization. And hence, I think people will adopt that. If I just tell someone to do it and I don't do it myself, I don't think it's ever going to work. So, to your point, as a leader, I would like to think I embody the principles of culture, which I would like myself to be a recipient of. And hence, if
mm.
I embody it and practice it with others, I think it becomes a mutually beneficial ecosystem for everyone.
And what is your advice for somebody who wants to make a career in investment banking?
I So when I've been recruiting for quite a few years from IIMA as well as a couple of the other IIMs, and when students ask me, they ask me either about finance or about investment banking. My view broadly is the same, but it's a little bit different for finance versus investment banking. First of all, finance is a very
Mm,
broad definition. There are many sub-segments or sub-fields within finance overall, if you will. And so I think given the information that is out there today and knowledge that students can gain by talking to others in the industry, making an assessment of which part of finance requires which skill set more than the other, I think it's worth doing that assessment. There's a lot more information out there today than I had when 20 years ago when I made this choice. Second thing, specific to investment banking, what I tell, and I genuinely believe in this. People ask me, do you need to have a finance background, or do you need to be a CA, or do you need to be a commerce graduate to do investment banking? I personally don't think that's a requirement. I think that's one of the many, many, many things that you need to do or know as an investment banker. If there was one thing that I would honestly tell students to think about, and it's not very easy to digest it, is investment banking. In my mind, the success in this field is entirely about how you work with people, which is nothing to do with finance, if you think about it. The people element of it becomes much, much more important. Today, after 18 years, I can tell you, yes, I need to know finance. Yes, I need to know deal making. But ultimately, it boils down to working with people to make it a successful industry or business. And so that element of it is often less understood. So if there was one piece of advice I would give to students who are thinking about investment banking, they should think about their own personalities, their own preferences, their own people skills. And it's not in a good or bad way. Some people are by definition more people oriented, like to work with others, whereas some people are a little bit more oriented towards working with products or with, in smaller teams or more individual. That's a personal choice. There's no good or bad in it. But I think the important choice to make is the success that one wants to see in investment banking is only going to happen if they can work well with other people and serve other people. That's one element which I thought was not very well understood when I was learning about investment banking. Over the years, I've realized that's probably the single biggest factor for success. And so I would advise students to think about that as they think about a future in investment banking.
Great. And as a recipient of Young Alumni Achievers Award, what do you hope to accomplish in the future, personally and professionally?
Like I said, being an IIMA alumnus is a huge responsibility in itself. Every time I tell someone I am from IIMA, that eyebrow lifting makes me feel very proud. But it also makes me conscious that people are seeing me as the representative of an institution. And like I said earlier, this award for me means that responsibility is that much more, because I need to now demonstrate on a going forward basis as well that I was worthy amongst many, many, many talented peers of mine who could have received this award. I've been lucky enough to get it. So I need to demonstrate that I am worthy of it, and I was worthy of it, and I will continue to be worthy of it. Personally and professionally, like I said earlier, I have mostly been fortunate in life that I've been reacting to what comes. I give it my best shot, and if it works out and it ends up being successful, I feel happy. I say that because next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, I hope to do what I'm doing. I hope I will be successful, but maybe it'll be something else. I don't know what changes in the future. I don't know what opportunities come. So it's hard for me to sit here and say, this is what I'll be doing in 15 years. What I can say, and the way I think about it is, whatever choices I make, whatever it is I choose to do, if I do it in a way that makes my family, that makes my institute, that makes my peers proud of me, I would count that as success. It doesn't matter if it's an investment banking or it's in something else. So my personal and professional goal is the same, which is to have impact and do something in the future which makes all of these people proud. Whatever that may be, that doesn't matter.
That's really inspiring. Thank you so much, Dave, for sharing your insights with us. We wish you all the best for the future.
No,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Like I said, I appreciate the opportunity and I love chatting with you for the last half an hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.